Welcome to update number 7 for Renewed Heart, Renewed Home, where we are walking through all of the changes and upgrades that are happening in our auditorium renovation and restoration process. And today we're talking about acoustics. Seriously? An entire episode dedicated to acoustics? Well, just wait and listen. Okay, that was bad. Seriously, who wrote this? First, a little bit about how acoustics work. If making sound is like dropping a rock into water, then the ripples it creates would be the acoustics. Every room that you walk into, sound is reflected, absorbed, or diffused. How that sound interacts with you determines if you need to raise your voice or whisper when you have a conversation. First, let's talk reflection. When you're in an enclosed space with just flat, hard walls, like an underground parking garage, any sound that is created will echo for a while. Then there's absorption. When sound hits a surface like carpet, curtains, or even people, those ripples get absorbed like waves washing up on a sandy beach. Finally, there's diffusion. Diffusion happens when sound hits an irregular object or a specific acoustical treatment, and instead of being reflected or absorbed, it's scattered. Every well-balanced room needs to have a combination of all 3 of these properties for sound to be most natural to the ear. This is exponentially exaggerated when the room happens to be a space with live musical instruments, like our auditorium. Previously, the acoustics in our auditorium were highly reflective by design to naturally mix together the sounds coming from many voices and instruments like a choir and orchestra. For that purpose, those acoustics did a spectacular job. However, our culture's changed, and now when you try to take control of the mix to balance out individual instruments and voices, both for those in the room and for Trinity online, a reflective room constantly works against you by mushing it all together, making everything feel louder and less intelligible. Does anyone else remember that experience in the original space? Yeah, me too. So, getting the acoustics right for our room was a huge value and an even bigger challenge. Enter this guy, Jay Kaufman, our acoustical engineer. Jay has worked with the who's who of the music industry for 50 years. Eric Clapton, Lionel Richie, John Denver, Olivia Newton-John, the list is long. In fact, when we met Jay, he was actually in the process of building a home studio for John Mayer. Jay is a legend in the audio world, and he had us do a series of tests with special microphones that were placed all over the auditorium. These measured how sound projected from our stage reacts with all of the unique surfaces in the shape of our room. And then he put all those calculations into a computer program designed to measure audio resonance and calculated how much reflection, absorption, and diffusion we needed and where that acoustical treatment needed to go so that our new auditorium can sound its absolute best. So, here's what we did. The back wall of the stage has 100% absorption from floor to ceiling to prevent uncontrolled sound from the band from bouncing off the back wall and into the room. 30% of the ceiling, it was covered with 189 absorptive panels built and installed by an incredible volunteer team. The lower side walls were exposed to the studs, filled with acoustic absorptive insulation, and then covered with acoustic fabric and then slatboard. Sound travels like water. When there's a gap, it'll flow freely, and when there's a hard surface, it will reflect. The size of the gap and the width of these slats are specific to absorb the exact audio frequencies that we want to eliminate, while at the same time reflecting the frequencies we want to hear, so the room still feels alive. The carpet and new theater seats are also both designed to have absorptive properties. But you might have noticed that there's a hard floor under the seats. Now you'd think that that was functional for cleaning, which is true, but this vinyl tile was actually installed for acoustics. Too much absorptive treatment can make a room feel lifeless. So a hard surface was placed under the seats where the sound from the main speakers can never reach. But get this, when you sing, the sound of your voice and the voices of those sitting around you will be reflected off of the floor and provide a greater sense of you being in a communal space with others. Now the back wall on the floor will have 75% absorptive treatment, with 25% of the wall being diffusion. And this is kind of fun. A small army of Trinity volunteers have taken the solid oak ends from our old pews, resurfaced them, then cut them down to be the exact size and configuration to scatter or diffuse the most problematic audio frequencies that challenge our room. Not only do they look like art, but because we upcycled the old pews and the materials were either reclaimed or donated, this treatment was completely free. So, every time you walk in or out of the auditorium and see those diffusion panels on the back wall, think, I used to sit on that. And that's just scratching the surface of all that's been done to make the sound in our renovated space be its best. We can't wait for you to see and hear it. And a huge shout out to all of those who donated their time to serve on these acoustic projects. You have volunteered thousands of hours to make all of this possible, and we are so thankful. Did you hear that? So thankful!